everyone, and welcome back to the Inspiration Collection Network. If you're an artist that's having a hard time creating a three-dimensional feel in your artwork, this video is meant to solve all your life problems. This is secret number 6, the Prism method and 3D mapping, a guide to master the illusion of depth in your artwork. And this is part of the Fundamental Drawing Secrets Master Course. If you haven't already, you can access the free Drawing Masterclass, which gives you the main secret to unlock the ability to capture reality with accuracy. And you'll find the link for this in the description below. The video you're currently watching is about understanding how to create a three-dimensional feel in your artwork. I call the main part of this the Prism method. Even though you are drawing lines on a flat surface, your goal is to create the illusion that what you're drawing has both depth and space. And this means that your way of looking at reality has to shift. And you have to develop the ability to pick up on subtle bits of information that explain the three-dimensional form of your references. This means that you have to develop the ability to see past your image and recognize the prism that makes up each part of it, like a rectangular prism or a cylinder. This includes being able to imagine what happens behind the image or around the image, as shown by these transparent lines. So take a moment to see the curvy rectangular prism that I've simplified the body into. Each of these big shapes are called a plane. So I've simplified the front plane, the side plane, the top plane, and of course the bottom, back, and right plane. And this is done by using the relationship between lights and shadows to understand where the figure turns in space. Sometimes you'll be able to see it very clearly with the lights and shadows, but you'll encounter a lot of moments where you'll need to simply have an understanding of three-dimensional mapping. The simplest three-dimensional shape that we've all drawn at some point is a rectangular prism. So we understand the planes and how they turn in space, and also moderately understand what the back planes would look like if the form was transparent. And this comes hand in hand with an understanding that each of these is a plane that is turning in a different direction. As a visual artist, you have to get really good at both recognizing this and creating the illusion of it in your artwork. And once you're able to visualize the prism, you can determine the light source and understand how the light would affect both the figure and the space around it. This is the basis of drawing from imagination, otherwise known as drawing from memory. When you wonder why certain artists are able to capture absolutely anything, even without a reference, you need to know that a lot of it comes from the fact that they have trained their eyes and mind to subconsciously understand the three-dimensional aspects of the references they choose to draw, which means that our eyes try to trace around the figure and map out its three-dimensional form as though we were sculpting it. This idea of modeling the form on a two-dimensional surface actually comes into play when both painting and sculpting. And like I said, the initial idea of this can be done with both a rectangular prism or a cylinder. So you have to get really good at visualizing everything that you draw as one of these two. And along with this comes the idea of understanding the direction that that cylinder is going. Is it going straight up? Is it rising away from you? Or is it rising towards you? This might not make sense at first, but what I'm talking about is your perspective towards each three-dimensional form. We have a cylinder rising straight up in the middle, rising away from us on the right, and towards us on the left. Using this, you can develop the skill to understand three-dimensional mapping on a two-dimensional surface. For example, let's follow the cylinder of my forearm as it changes direction. Here, the cylinder is going towards us and the arm is foreshortened. Using the cylinder, you can map out the curvature of the arm as it moves in our direction. And then if the arm shifts and moves in a different direction, you can recreate that cylinder and depict the curvature of the surface correctly. Notice that in this position, the arm is neither going away or towards us. And then here, the forearm and the cylinder is then directed towards the viewer. So the main aspect of this is deciding what direction the cylinder is pointing towards. Here, the entire arm is heading towards us. Even though it might be tempting to depict the forearm flat, because that's the way it appears, the forearm to wrist cylinder is heading towards the viewer. So you have to make sure that you keep that in mind and create the mapping of the surface with that truth in mind. So with that information, let's go ahead and study this figure being viewed from below. Since she is rising away from the viewer, every cylinder of every body part is going to recede further and further away from the viewer, and the cylinders underneath will overlap the cylinders above. By seeing the figure in this way, you can clearly visualize the curvature of the three-dimensional surface. And in the same way that the figure can be simplified into cylinders, it can be simplified into rectangular prisms, or even a single rectangular prism encompassing the entire subject. So imagine placing the figure in a box and what that three-dimensional box would look like. This helps you to understand the perspective from which you are viewing your figure. If you have Procreate, you can practice doing these overlapping shapes and lines on your images to further train your ability to see form. One thing I would do is add a second layer, and you can change the opacity with a two-finger tap and sliding the screen to the left. And we are going to use specific reference points to understand the prism that the hand fits in. This is done by reading the shadows and recognizing how each shadow represents the figure turning away in space from the light. So by understanding where each part turns away from the light, you can develop the most simplified prism that encompasses the form that you are looking at. And the only reason I'm able to do this is because I've been trying for a long time. So the first couple of times that you do this, it's not going to make a lot of sense, but the whole point is that you try to visualize this until it starts making sense. Exploring this concept helps you to see each figure that you're looking at as a three-dimensional form. When drawing the human body, you want to get very good at recognizing the joints and the shadow shapes. In this case, where the pinky transitions into the shadow shape is where that side plane is on that rectangular prism. And even though it's curvy, it still expresses the form that encompasses the three fingers grouped together. What you have to do to get very good at this is to experiment this concept with many different references and try to make each prism that you place around your form more and more accurate according to where it pivots in space and what the shadows are saying about the form. And what I mean by explore is that you're going to get this wrong many times. It's never going to be fully accurate unless you're drawing it hyper-realistically. But the more you do this, the easier it's going to be for you to see that everything fits within a box. Even the small details can be encompassed within a box or three-dimensional prism. Not every part of every reference that you draw is going to be super clear. You have to get very good at recognizing what the shadows are telling you, and then expressing that correctly in your drawings. If you have access to the Fundamental Drawing Secrets Master Course, you're able to watch the entire process and follow along with each of the videos available in the guided step-by-step lesson library. Now, if you pay close attention to what I'm doing on the left, I'm simply mapping out the planes as if each part of each finger was a rectangular prism. In truth, we know that the human body is not this angular, but being able to visually understand the sides or planes facing distinct directions in space continuously unlocks your ability to visualize and interpret three-dimensional form. I'm going to be adding different videos breaking down various references in this exact same way so that you're able to see how it works on a variety of different references or subject matter. And in this particular case, the amount of references that you do this with directly impacts how much you improve at drawing and how quickly you do so. You want to get really good at this so that you can start seeing everything in its most simplified form. And in this way, you can visually separate each part, for example, the palm, into its own prism as it separates from both the fingers and the wrist. And this new understanding gives you the tools to then draw any of these from memory or imagination. But even if you're not interested in drawing from memory or imagination, this knowledge helps to train your eye's ability to look into and past the figures that you're looking at. This is one of the ways that we get really good at understanding anatomy, because we can only get anatomy from seeing the hints of what is shown on the outside of the body. Therefore, try to understand that imaginary lines, shapes, and forms are some of the main foundations that artists need in order to be able to capture reality. And sometimes it's as simple as interpreting shadows correctly. So as you move forward, try to look for the cylinders and the rectangular prisms that explain the way that each figure turns away in space. With enough practice, you'll begin to recognize the curvature that is present in the figures you are drawing, even if you're looking at a flat surface. And I want you to understand that actually being able to visualize this takes time, but the result is definitely worth it. Being able to see each cylinder that makes up each body part and understand the direction that it's going, whether it's going towards you or away from you, is an extremely powerful game changer when it comes to drawing and painting. And this all goes along with the thing that I've been saying the entire time. Simplifying is one of the most important parts of being able to draw. You have to start simple and slowly move into the details so that the main idea is captured. Everything is made up of light shapes and shadow shapes. And when you understand how to read their interactions and interpret them correctly, drawing starts to become your second nature rather than a complex science that you don't understand. And with that being said, thank you all so much for being here, for having faith in your potential, and for supporting what I do. Like I said, I'll be releasing more examples of this done in different figures to help you further your understanding of this visualization method. If you haven't already, make sure that you use the link below to sign up for the free drawing masterclass so you can unlock the most important part of the whole drawing process and get started on your artist journey today. In the comments below, let me know what items you want me to experiment this visualization method on. Make sure that you drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay updated for when I release new content to learn how to draw, paint, and make a living as a full-time artist. Thank you for becoming part of the Inspiration Collection Network. My name is Prism, and I will see you on the next video.